What's the most dumb rule you've had to deal with in your life? At a previous job, I was instructed not to keep any document or email for longer than 6 months, and that my computer would be audited to ensure compliance. This included program source code. I was a programmer. Did you work for Enron? I work in a very heavily regulated industry. My emails get archived and deleted from my Outlook automatically, and I don't have access to anything over 6 months old. This is the opposite of Enron. Actually, all email communication sits somewhere I cannot access it and mess with it, and auditors can go through the archives as needed. I worked at a bowling alley for a while when I was younger. We had a concession area that sold food, and we were allowed one free meal a shift with one stipulation: no fries. I could have a hot dog with onion rings, a burger with tater tots, or chicken strips with nachos, all for free, but no fries. Never mind the fact we had 3 times more fries than any other side, or that they were the cheapest side item we sold. No free fries. Odd. Maybe management wanted to force staff to make the other sides so that they are available for customers. Or maybe it forces stock be used up so that it doesn't go unused for too long. If customers don't order enough, I would be interested to know the story of why that rule got implemented. When I was working in editorial, our publisher decided to become a green company. Every email we sent out would have a footer that had a picture of a tree and said something like "Save the trees, don't print" if you don't have to on it. Except that my job required me to have credit information from companies of the products we shot printed out and given to the copy editors for fact checking. So every single credit request email would print an extra page per email reply with just the footer on it. They wouldn't let us take that stupid thing off the emails. I would have over 400 plus emails with 400 plus extra pages printed per issue. Yes, very conservative with the paper. I was building a theater set in high school, as a slacking senior taking a shop class, and wearing my hard hat. I left the theater to use the bathroom and a random teacher stopped me for breaking the no hats in school rule. She escorted me back to the theater and told my shop teacher he should write me up for my infraction. He told her to get off the set because she wasn't wearing a hard hat as required by safety rules. Should have written her up for an infraction instead. I worked in it for a company that had its server room in a building owned by a different company. Because I was classed as third party by this other company, every time I needed to enter this server room there was a rule that I had to watch a 20-minute long safety video before being allowed to enter. It was maddening to have to watch this 20-minute video just to enter the room for 10 seconds. Press a power button, then leave. In schools, if someone tries to fight you and you don't want to, you can't even defend yourself. The rule is, if you throw a punch or perform any other violent act, you've consented to the fight. Are you a 140-pound freshman about to get killed by a senior? Did you hit them once in self-defense, but got sent to the hospital? Well, guess what, kiddo? You've got 5 days out of school suspension. We actually have in our rulebook the penalties for setting off a bomb. Is that necessary? In several schools, the zero tolerance policy for fighting will actually get everyone involved in the fight in trouble, even if you were on the receiving end of a beating and didn't fight back at all. It almost incentivizes you to fight back instead of trying to de-escalate or just fetal position to reduce the damage. So it's really lose-lose. My local district is this way as well. Even if you're being verbally bullied and it escalates to physical assaulting and you fetal position and take it, you get suspended too. It does definitely incentivize these kids to fight back. A lot of parents are outraged by it. It reminds of me of the good old days of after school fight it outs and be done with it. But my kids are finished with the school system, so I may be biased. My mom is very conservative, and as a kid girl I wasn't allowed to wear shorts, tank tops, fitted tees, or the colors black or maroon. Problem was, at my school I was required to play an instrument, and for our concert we were supposed to wear black pants and white shirts. I had to bring in a note from my mother to my band teacher explaining that I wasn't allowed to wear whore colors and would be wearing navy pants instead. Yeah. Nothing says whore like playing the trombone in marching band attire. I'm wondering which colors are non-whore colors. One time at my high school, Some kid got busted dealing pot from a bathroom near the auditorium. As a result, students were barred from using that bathroom for the rest of the semester. I'm sure that completely solved the problem. Yay. I love these completely reactionary rules. They usually ban something completely irrelevant to the problem, just to show they are taking action. I worked in daycare. We had classroom ratios. Say one teacher must be in the room for every 5 children there. My new boss wanted us to call her when we needed to go to the bathroom and wait for her to come and cover us for the time it took us to go pee. Okay, so this doesn't sound so bad. Except we'd call her and she'd tell us to hold it. Or she'd say that she was busy with something and would be there in a second. And then a half an hour later, when we are slinking down the hall to the bathroom, she'd yell at us for being in the hall. She also wrote me up for being too loud. In a daycare, I was singing songs to infants during circle time, and they were all sitting quietly and clapping. She was crazy. What happens if you have to take a child to the bathroom? I'm assuming there would be some kids that can't yet do it alone. The army and putting your hands in your pockets. It's ducking senseless and everybody knows it. At a private school I went to, it was mandatory for all boys to wear ties on Wednesdays. If you didn't wear one, you were sent to home to get one. Well, one day I forgot. Luckily, I was blessed with the ingenuity of MacGyver that day and made a tie out of a long piece of paper towel. It worked for a couple hours until some assholes in my class pointed it out. Apparently, paper is not an acceptable material for ties. I was sent home. I remember back in high school there was a system where, if you were missing part of your uniform for any legitimate reason, you could go to the vice principal and get a slip that would excuse you from that particular uniform abnormality for the day. One day I arrived at school and realized that I'd completely forgotten my tie. I knew that wasn't a legitimate reason, but I figured I'd try my luck anyway. So I just went to the vice principal's office, flat out told him that I'd just completely forgotten my tie and whether that would qualify for a slip. He didn't even question it any further and just gave me a slip. I wasn't allowed to watch PG-13 or higher movies or the book, comic, game, ECT equivalent until I moved out of my parents' house at 19. Additionally, I was not allowed to have my computer in my room. Not entirely unreasonable. The weird thing about that is it kept being true after I got married and was just visiting. In my elementary school, a few times a week they would take the brighter students and put them in a class 1 or 2 grade levels higher to help teach maturity. I was finished my work grade 4. I was put into a grade 6 class and didn't have anything to do, so I started doing the other classwork. After I finished, I went to the teacher and asked if I had done it correctly and proceeded to be chastised for the next 30 minutes. Apparently there's some taboo on challenging yourself. I once took a part-time job from a temp agency at a Toys R Us distribution warehouse where my job was to cut open boxes, place it all on a pallet, put the pallet in the bottom of the stack's large shelves. We were all just extra people they needed for the extra Christmas workload. Met all kinds of interesting people, including an elderly husband-wife who were farmers trying to make ends meet. Well, anyway, the one person in charge of us was an absolute cunt. She was a permanent Toys R Us employee. We were treated like shit. Oftentimes we didn't have any boxes to cut open. Were made to stand still at our tables, large but low metal tables with 4 people to stand around and do nothing. If we moved around, or heaven forbid we sat down on the table, we were screamed at. I guess they thought if we were going to be paid for doing nothing, that we should suffer for it. Standing in one spot for up to 4 hours straight would absolutely kill my back. I have run into a lot of jobs where the rules seem to be just made to punish employees. Oftentimes because of what some bad employee did in the past. Now all future employees have to pay for it. I'm an EMS helicopter pilot. I fly with night vision goggles. Problem: the FAA rules for using MVGs state that the aircraft must also be equipped with a working radar altimeter. So if I'm flying over the Sierra Nevada mountains on a pitch black night and the radar altimeter fails, I have to take the night vision goggles off. I'm guessing this is to prevent people from assuming they can use NVGs without having the radar as a backup. Right. But like, Wouldn't this be superseded by something like, do whatever you can with whatever you have to operate safely in the event of equipment failure? Yes, if critical equipment fails, priority number 1 becomes land the bird down safely. I worked at Pizza Hut for a while. We got an order for 5 pepperoni pizzas. So I laid out 5 discs of dough, stretched them all, then sauced them all. You know, the most efficient way to do it. The manager came over and said I was doing it wrong. That I had to make each pizza start to finish, place it in the oven, then make the next one. I told him he was an idiot and kept doing it the efficient way. GM came in later and totally had my back. Christ, that's a pathetic victory. Was a manager at McDonald's for a summer. Same issue. Huge lunch rush. I was making a dozen quarter pounders. They had these ketchup and mustard guns. There was a process in which you added ketchup first on all, then mustard, then onions, then pickles. Burger all one at a time. Then close. Wrap. I found I could two-hand the ketchup and mustard and do all 12 in about 3 seconds. Then dust them with onions. etc. I could do all 12 in less than about 45 seconds, as opposed to several minutes. GM came by and lost her shit. Demanded I follow the process. Legit. In the middle of a huge line out the door lunch rush. Throw all 12 out and start over, and watched me make each one individually. Meanwhile, customers were pissed off. Our middle school had a no backpacks rule. You had to leave your backpack in the locker and just carry your books around to class. And if it didn't fit in your locker or someone put a big poster over your locker, which did happen, tough luck. The reasons kept changing and were all illegitimate. Was it to protect our backs? Then why make us stoop over carrying all of our notebooks and textbooks? Was it to keep backpacks out of the aisles? Then why not just put them under the desks? This would be especially ducked up for girls needing to carry pads, tampons, and potentially anyone with some sort of medical issue or another. Didn't happen to me personally, but my sister is severely mentally and physically handicapped, wheelchair bound, and frequently has health issues or doctor's appointments, which inevitably lead to many missed classes. Despite this, we've gotten countless phone calls and messages on the machine informing us that my sister has earned an in-school suspension for her missed classes, are punishing people for not getting to class by forcing them out of class. In 5th grade, my friend and I were walking through the mostly empty school to get to our bus at the end of the day. A teacher was walking in the opposite direction towards us and yelled at us to walk in a line. So we made a line, just the two of us, and walked like that to our bus. Weren't you already technically in a line? If there were just 2 of you, the math checks out. No elbows on the table. You'd get a pink slip at lunch. Had to wear an aerial harness to climb a 6-foot ladder. I had a teacher who, if someone sneezed and you said bless you, he would say only a priest can bless someone, and if you do it again I'll write you up. I'm not allowed to contact mall security or the police without district manager approval. I could have been just robbed at gunpoint in my store. My first call is supposed to be my DM to tell them I got robbed, and can I pretty please call the police? Once worked at a Chinese restaurant where, if you forgot to put the rice on the tables, order white or brown rice which were free, the owner expected you to buy the entire table's meal out of your paycheck. It happened to me once in the 6 months I was there, and they told me to pay the 50 tab for the table. I told them, if they enforced that rule I'd walk out in the middle of service. They didn't enforce the rule. My school enforced a no running on the playground rule, because a kid fell over and broke his leg. In high school I left campus after class and got some ice cream. I came back 20 minutes later to meet with my teacher for help on calculus. When I walked into campus, I was stopped by one of the ladies on yard duty who informed me that I'm not allowed to come back on campus after leaving. I explained to her that I was coming back for tutoring, but she didn't care. Long story short, she took me to the admin office and turned me in, and they gave her weird looks and told her what I was doing was completely fine. When I was in high school there was a rule that students were not allowed to grow facial hair in any form. If a student tried to grow facial hair, or just plain didn't have the time to shave before getting to class, which started at 7 AM, He was sent to the disciplinary office, scolded by the vice principal, and forced to shave with a single-bladed disposable razor and no shaving cream. Multiple of my friends faced this punishment. I asked several teachers why this rule was in effect, and most of them simply stated that they didn't know. I got one answer out of the dozen teachers I asked, and that was, it's so that the students don't look like they're older and get mistaken as faculty. This would allow them to roam the halls and not get sent back to class. To which I could only respond, why don't you just learn what your coworkers look like? The football coach was not happy with me after that. I know some high school kids can appear a few years older, but there is a huge, noticeable difference between a 17-year kid with a patchy goatee and a mid-20s through middle-aged man. My college required a swimming test to graduate. If you couldn't swim, you had to enroll in a physical education class in swimming. Every year a couple of people scrambled at graduation time and dog paddled a few laps on the pool because they'd never taken the swim test. They actually wouldn't give you a diploma or mark your transcript as graduated without the swim test. One guy got out of it with a doctor's note because he was wheelchair bound. Pretty much everybody else was stuck. Edit. In answer to comments questions. About 100 years ago one new graduate drowned. His parents donated a chunk of money and made this test a condition. They didn't want any other wealthy young scion to go down in a yachting accident. I was in the military for 6 years, and by far the dumbest rule was that you would get issued all of this really nice cold weather gear that would keep you nice and warm even in the coldest weather. Yet we weren't allowed to wear any of it. When we went to the field we would still have to pack all this shit. But then it would just stay in your ruck while you froze your nuts off because we all had to be in the same uniform. When I worked at Target, we had to refer to customers as guests, not just when we were facing them. Also in places like the break room. If a manager overheard someone use the term customer, they would usually say something like, "Did you just say the C word?" My mother had a group punishment rule. Essentially if I or my sister got in trouble both of us would get punished. Even if one of us did nothing wrong. It was supposed to motivate us in some stupid way. It kind of stopped being a rule when I got older because I would just ignore it. As a kid it sucked. I used to get spanked and put in timeout because my sister was being a brat. Someone kept drawing on the bathroom stalls in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade bathrooms. Until they were caught we had to go to the bathroom with a buddy and only 2 people in the bathroom at a time. Also a teacher, not mine, only gave 1 minute to go to the bathroom. When grandfather was driving, everyone in the car had to bless themselves with a sign of the cross when driving by a Catholic church. If anyone didn't do it, he'd pull over in front of the church and just hold us hostage until everyone blessed themselves. Even if they weren't religious or Catholic,